Joon was on his knees in front of the barricade, and the woman he loved was the first person to vote yes. The shelter gate was already half broken when Joon's own team decided the fastest way to save supplies was to throw him outside. Not the zombies. His team, the zombies, were just waiting behind the barricade with customer service patience. Like even they knew the paperwork was almost done. Joon was on his knees in the mud, hands tied, face bruised, while the people he'd protected for years stood above him and called it strategy. Daeho, his closest friend, pointed straight at him. He's been a freeloader since day one. The crowd turned fast. That's the scary thing about a simple lie. If it gives people someone to blame, they don't ask for the receipt. Yuna, Joon's girlfriend, stepped forward next. No shaking voice, no guilt on her face, just cold confidence from a woman who had already decided history belonged to her. He held me back for years, she said. I wasted my strongest seasons protecting someone who couldn't even protect himself. That line gave off the vibe of, I practiced this breakup speech while people were dying outside. But the moment she said it, the truth hit different. 6 months earlier, everyone called Yuna's growth monstrous talent. Her sword speed jumped, her reflexes sharpened, her level shot up so fast people started whispering that she was chosen by the apocalypse itself. Cute story but wrong invoice. Every time Yuna hit a new wall, Joon saw a panel only he could read. The panel said, growth acceleration reward available. Transfer to party member Yuna. Owner growth reduced for 30 days. And every time Joon pressed yes. Not once, not twice, again and again. While Yuna's stats climbed like a boosted ranked account, Joon's own progress kept getting delayed, locked, and quietly eaten by the system. She thought she had a legendary training arc. Her training arc had an invisible investor. Back in the shelter, Yuna looked down at him like he had been an ankle weight. You survived because I allowed it. Joon's hand tightened around the torn sleeve at his wrist. For 1 second, he almost answered. Daeho cut him off. Don't let him manipulate you. That's what parasites do. This is the same Daeho who once became famous for holding the West Bridge during the Winter Siege. People called him brave. They called him humanity's shield. And sure, Daeho fought hard. That part was real. But under that bridge, Joon was lying behind a cracked generator with blood running from his nose, keeping a hidden safe house relay active, while the system drained his stamina every 10 seconds. The panel kept blinking. Sanctuary field active. Party defense increased by 40%. Owner stamina drain continuing. Daeho's shield didn't crack because Joon was paying the bill from underground. But now Daeho stood there, rewriting history with professional confidence. This man didn't forget. He edited the memory until he looked better in it. Then Sena spoke from the side. My healing saved thousands. His support tricks barely mattered. And before we can even get comfortable, Mira does the same thing. Joon looks at his cousin, the one person blood should have made complicated, and tries to speak. Mira, you know I. She slaps his hand away before he can finish. Don't use family to guilt me. Looking back at all this, it's kind of like borrowing someone's Netflix for 3 years, changing the password, and calling them unemployed. Near the back, a little girl named Nari hugged a cracked water bottle to her chest. She was one of the shelter kids Joon used to sneak extra rations to. Her voice came out small. But he fixed the water filters. He fixed Shelter 4 when everyone got sick. Daeho turned on her instantly. Kids don't understand strategy. No, she understood clean water, but defending Joon had officially become dangerous. So Nari's mother pulled her back. That was the moment the crowd finished turning. Not because they had proof, because silence is easy when the person being punished has no power left. Yuna stepped closer. You always made people pity you. That was your real talent. Joon raised his head. His eyes moved from Yuna to Daeho, then to Sena, and finally to Mira. He wasn't looking for mercy anymore. He was checking if even one of them still had shame. Nobody moved, so he gave them the one truth their egos couldn't survive. You think you don't need me? But before he could finish, Yuna slapped him. From his face, it's clear he still couldn't believe it. Don't drag my name into your lies, she said. Now, if these people had watched even one Manhwa Origins recap, they'd know slapping the quiet system user right before the reset is how you speedrun consequences. Daeho pointed at the gate. Open it. 2 guards grabbed Joon under the arms. His legs dragged for the first few steps. Then he forced himself upright, not because he could win. He just refused to be carried to his own execution like luggage. Outside the barricade, the zombie horde slammed against the fence. Hands pushed through the gaps. Teeth snapped at empty air. The floodlights kept flickering, catching every face in ugly little flashes. Daeho watched without blinking. Sena folded her hands like this was sad, but needed. Mira stared at the floor. Yuna leaned close enough for only Joon to hear. You should be grateful. At least this way you're useful once. In Yuna's head, this wasn't murder. It was resource management. In Daeho's head, this wasn't betrayal. It was cutting off dead weight. In Sena's head, this wasn't cruelty. It was protecting the people who mattered. And in Mira's head, Silence was easier than admitting her whole life started with a debt she never paid. The gate opened. Cold rain blew in. The guards shoved him. Joon hit the mud outside, rolled onto his back, and saw Yuna one last time through the bars. She didn't cry. She looked relieved. At the edge of his sight, a pale, dying panel flickered. It read, "Owner vitality unstable. Party benefit contracts still active." Even dying, the system was still trying to feed them leftovers. That almost made him laugh. The horde fell over him. Joon's fingers dug into the mud, closing around nothing. His final thought was simple. If I get another chance, none of them will ever receive another thing from me. Joon woke up to a cracked phone screaming beside his bed. No heaven, no dramatic prophecy, just a cheap alarm vibrating against the floor like it owed someone money. His hand shot out and grabbed it. The date on the screen hit harder than any zombie bite. 2 days before the acid rain, the first infected flood. 2 days before the world turned into a survival game with no pause button, and way too many spawn campers. Joon sat up. The apartment was small. The lights worked. The tap water was still safe. That last part made his breathing catch. He touched his face. No slap mark, no bite wounds, no mud under his nails. But the memory stayed clear. Yuna's hand across his face. Daeho calling him useful once. Mira looking away. Joon put the phone face down and raised his left hand. For half a second, nothing happened. Then a crisp neon blue admin panel opened above his wrist. The panel read, "Safe house system restored. Previous owner authority retained. Timeline rollback detected. Party benefit channels suspended pending owner decision." Joon didn't smile, not yet, because if he returned, someone else could have returned too. If Yuna remembered, she wouldn't just leave him. She would test him. If Daeho remembered, he wouldn't just mock him. He would move early. And if the whole team knew Joon remembered too, they wouldn't wait until the apocalypse to throw him away. They'd bury him before the weather report. So Joon did the smartest thing he had done in 2 lifetimes. He acted stupid. At noon, Joon sat inside the restaurant where he and Yuna were supposed to meet. The seat across from him stayed empty. 10 minutes passed, 20, then her text arrived. Something came up, don't wait. Old Joon would have panicked. Old Joon would have called immediately. Old Joon would have sprinted straight into the emotional bear trap, with flowers in one hand and no self-respect in the other. So that's what he performed. He called once, no answer. He sent one message, "Are you mad at me?" No answer. Then he stopped, because the act only needed to look real from her side. An hour later, his phone rang. Yuna. He let it ring twice before answering, because old Joon never had the patience to play cool. "Yuna, are you okay?" Her voice came through smooth. Too smooth. "Joon, let's end this." He made his breath catch. "What? Why?" "That's your first question. You skipped lunch and jumped straight to breakup." "Yeah, I have questions." A tiny pause. Yuna wasn't listening to the answer. She was listening to the shape of him, checking the panic, checking the confusion, checking if the dead man on the phone sounded like the one she had thrown away. Then she asked the real question. "Have you felt strange today? Dreams, memories, anything that feels wrong?" Joon stared at the system panel floating near his wrist. Then he gave her exactly what she wanted. "Yuna, you dumped me, and now you're asking if I'm haunted." Silence. Then Yuna exhaled, small and relieved. She had just asked a dead man if he remembered dying, and he answered like a guy, worried his girlfriend had joined a weird conspiracy group. So she relaxed. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "You're too dependent on me. I need people who can stand beside me, not someone I have to drag." Joon lowered his eyes. His thumb bent the edge of the phone case. "Please don't do this." Exactly the old version of him she wanted to hear. Yuna sighed like she was the one carrying the tragedy. "I hope you grow up someday." The call ended. Joon kept the phone against his ear for 3 more seconds. Then he placed it face down on the table. Then his breathing changed. The system panel brightened. It read, "Former partner Yuna has severed emotional bond. Shared benefit authority, pending owner approval." Joon looked at the empty chair across from him. She remembers. No shouting, no public breakdown, just one quiet sentence from a man who had already died once and wasn't handing out free previews. He tapped the panel. "Do not restore shared benefits." Yuna's name dimmed. 1 thread cut. 5 still left. Across the city, Yuna lowered her phone. Daeho stood by the window. Sena sat with a notebook open. Mira leaned against the wall, pretending she didn't care. Kang and Hyejin watched Yuna like she was reading exam results. Daeho asked, "Well?" Yuna smiled. "He didn't come back." The room exhaled, not from grief, but from relief. These people had returned from the end of the world with future knowledge. Raid routes, shelter locations, and the confidence of speedrunners starting New Game Plus. And they believed the only person who missed the reset was the freeloader. Daeho nodded like the universe had personally endorsed his ego. Makes sense. The system rewarded the top-tier survivors with a do-over. The freeloader didn't qualify. Kang laughed first. "So the useless one stays useless. Nice." Sena closed her notebook. "That helps us. We wasted too much food and medicine on him last time. Mira's mouth tightened, but didn't argue. Daeho tapped the map. Good, acid rain starts in 2 days. First outbreak hits the eastern blocks by night. We claim Shelter 1 before the civilian wave reaches it. After that, the hospital cache, the water tower, and the underground route to Central Fortress. They had the steps, they had the confidence, they had the old map in their heads. The problem was, their walkthrough was missing the guy who opened half the doors. Yuna crossed her legs. We don't contact Joon. If he panics, let him. If he survives the first stage, maybe we use him later as bait. Sena gave a small laugh. That sounds harsh, but she didn't say no. Funny how that works. People love calling something harsh right before agreeing with the whole plan. Daeho looked at Mira. You're not going soft, are you? Mira looked down. He's still my cousin. Yuna's expression cooled. In the last timeline, did being his cousin stop him from dragging us down? That was the bait. Mira took it because shame is easy to weaponize. No, she said. Daeho clapped once. Then we move clean. Move clean, that's what they called it. Not betrayal, not theft, not using future knowledge built on someone else's sacrifice. Move clean. This is Dollar Tree villain language with premium packaging. Hyejin, the quietest one, tapped Shelter 1 on the map. What about his safe house skill? Even if it was weak, he had some connection to shelter panels. Daeho waved it off. Low-grade maintenance. We only kept him because we didn't know better. Sena nodded. The rewards went to the actual fighters anyway. Yuna's face sharpened. Exactly. We cleared the raids, people followed us. Joon just stood near panels and acted useful. And there it was. The lie upgraded itself in real time. Because Joon's support never looked dramatic, they didn't know that while they ranked up. He was just being shadow. He didn't split monsters in half. He didn't heal children under a spotlight. He didn't give speeches on burning walls. He touched panels. He managed doors. He moved resources. He paid hidden costs. He turned impossible shelters into working shelters, while everyone else got titles that sounded better at dinner. So the team looked back and decided the invisible parts didn't matter. People will climb a ladder, kick it down, and call themselves experts in gravity. Daeho circled Shelter 1 in red. This time, no charity cases. We take everything early, level faster, and become stronger than before. Yuna leaned back. Without Joon holding us down, humanity won't just survive. She smiled wider. We'll rule what's left. Please understand the delusion in this room. They had future knowledge for 20 minutes and already sounded like startup founders after one podcast. Meanwhile, the actual hidden founder was sitting alone with the admin panel open. Joon stood over a city map with 6 locations circled. Shelter 1, East Hospital, Water Tower, Old Subway Route, Central Fortress Foundation Site, and one mark nobody else knew. Founder's storage. He didn't rush. That was the difference now. The first timeline trained him to react to everyone else's emergencies. Yuna needed growth, so he gave rewards. Sena needed stronger healing, so he paid recovery costs. Mira needed awakening, so he spent experience he never got back. Daeho needed safe routes, so Joon upgraded doors in silence. Every crisis became another excuse to cut a piece off himself and hand it over. Not this time. A new panel opened over the map. It read party benefit channels detected from previous timeline. Restore access. Below it, 6 names waited. Yuna, Daeho, Sena, Mira, Kang, Hyejin. Joon looked at them for a long second. His finger moved once. Reject all. The names dimmed one by one. Just a quiet tap that did more damage than any punch he could throw right now. Another panel appeared. It read first owner registration available. Shelter 1 unclaimed. Register authority now. Joon's eyes stayed on the words. Shelter 1, the exact place Daeho had just circled, the exact place the team believed would open for them like history, owed them customer service. A second warning appeared underneath. Registered shelters cannot share benefits with severed party members unless manually approved by the owner. For the first time since waking up, Joon smiled. Not wide, not crazy, just the tiny smile of a man watching 6 traitors argue with an automatic door 2 days early. His finger hovered over confirm, then pressed down. The panel flashed once. Shelter 1 owner registration complete. And just like that, the invisible support stopped auto-sharing. Joon's first stop wasn't a weapon store. That's how you know he actually understood the apocalypse. Amateurs buy guns first because guns look cool in profile pictures. Joon bought water filters, acid-proof tarp, old copper mesh, sealed batteries, burn gel, and industrial tape strong enough to hold together a bad decision. Boring stuff, ugly stuff, the kind of supplies nobody respects, until the rain starts melting through cheap umbrellas. He was loading the last box when a familiar voice cut across the aisle. Joon, of course, Yuna, because apparently even the apocalypse had decided this breakup needed a season 2. Yuna stood near the entrance with Daeho behind her, dressed like they were already posing for humanity's future statue. Kang carried 2 weapon cases and wore the expression of a guy who thought owning tactical gloves counted as a personality. Yuna's eyes moved over Joon's cart. Filters, tape, medicine, canned food. She smiled a little, not kindly, worse, like she had just found proof for a lie she already wanted to tell. Panic shopping? She asked. Joon looked at the cart, then back at her. Camping? Daeho laughed. You don't camp. Joon shrugged. I might start. Yuna stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to sound personal, while still making sure everyone nearby could hear. Joon, breakups are hard, I get that. But buying half a disaster aisle because I left you is not healthy. There it was. Yuna didn't just want him gone. She wanted the room to agree he was unstable. That was her real talent. Not sword speed, not leadership, brand management. She could take a man buying water filters and turn it into emotional evidence. Joon kept his face loose, confused, a little embarrassed. Exactly what she expected. I'm not doing this because of you. Yuna gave him that soft, fake-said look people use when they want sympathy for being cruel. Then return it, go home, sleep. Stop making people worry. People, as if she hadn't already told half the old team not to answer if he called. As if this wasn't the same woman who watched him get pushed into a zombie horde and looked relieved when the gate shut. Manhwa Origin's public service announcement. When the ex who murdered you starts giving gentle advice in a hardware aisle, don't take the coupon. Kang reached toward one of Joon's boxes. What's even in here? Joon's hand landed on the box first. Still calm and quiet. Paid items. Kang smirked. Relax, we're just checking. The old shop owner behind the counter looked up from his receipt book. You check after you buy. Kang turned. Do you know who we are? The old man slapped the receipt book against Kang's cheek so fast. Even Daeho blinked. I know you're blocking my aisle, the owner said. Kang's face went red, but Yuna lifted one hand. Leave it, we have better supplies to collect. She looked at Joon's card again, and almost laughed. Filters and tape, you never changed. That line told Joon everything. In her head, survival meant weapons, levels, titles, and applause. The boring parts were beneath her, which was funny, because the boring parts were exactly why she had survived the first time. Yuna left with the flashy gear. Joon left with the parts that made doors obey. That is the difference between a player chasing loot and a player reading patch notes. At the pharmacy, Joon found another problem wearing a familiar face. Sena was already there. The future saint of the shelters had cleared a shelf of antibiotics and painkillers into 2 bags. Yuna stood beside her, because apparently betrayal came with a buddy system now. Near the counter, Nari's mother was counting coins with one hand, while Nari hugged a tiny backpack to her chest. The clerk pushed 2 acid masks across the counter. You're short. Nari's mother swallowed. Can I take one now and pay for the second tomorrow? The clerk didn't answer. He didn't have to. People get very honest when stock is limited. Yuna noticed Joon watching. Her mouth curved. Oh, here we go. Sena glanced over. What? Yuna tilted her head toward Nari. Joon's about to buy affection again. Joon didn't respond. He stepped forward, placed cash on the counter, and took the 2 masks, burn gel, and a small purifier cartridge. Then he crouched just enough to put the bag beside Nari's shoes. For your mom, he said. Nari's fingers closed around the strap. Thank you. Yuna clicked her tongue. You really can't help yourself, can you? Joon stood. No. The word came out flat enough that Yuna's eyes narrowed. For half a second, she couldn't tell if he meant he couldn't help being kind, or he couldn't help remembering. So she tested him again. You know, if you're trying to prove you're useful, this is sad. Joon looked at her like the sentence had arrived from far away. I'm buying medicine. Sena gave a small laugh. Medicine doesn't save anyone if the healer is weak. Founder's storage was under an abandoned subway kiosk, behind a maintenance locker nobody had cared about in 10 years. He arrived there later that same day, this time with 30 hours to spare. The neon blue panel opened as soon as his palm touched the lock. Storage activated. See, here's the mechanical part the old team never cared about. A safe house didn't open because someone was famous. It opened because an owner claimed it, paid the resource cost, maintained the ledger, and approved who received benefits. Last timeline, Joon did all of that in silence. His teammates walked through locked doors like VIPs and thought the universe had good manners. Now the owner was still Joon. The ledger was still his. The party channel was gone. That door was about to treat them like strangers with attitude. While Joon installed the first core, Yuna was turning the future into a group project. With herself as the lead, she pointed at Shelter 1 on the map. We move before the civilian wave. Daeho handles the front. Kang keeps people back. Sena takes medical priority. Mira scouts the east route. Hyejin watches for route changes. Daeho frowned a little. You're giving orders now. Yuna smiled without looking up. I'm making sure we don't repeat old mistakes. That shut him up, because everyone in the room knew what she meant. Joon, Yuna had made made him the symbol of every delay, every loss, every bad night, every mistake she didn't want to own. That is how she stayed clean. Put all the dirt on one person, then act shocked when your hands look spotless. Mira shifted near the wall. What if he really doesn't survive the first rain? Yuna's pen stopped. For a second, her face gave nothing away. He survived last time because he was attached to us. Sena nodded. Without us, he won't last long. Yuna looked down at the map. Exactly, but her finger tapped the table twice. Small but sharp. She was still thinking about the pharmacy, about the way Joon answered, about how he bought the boring items first. Yuna hated that tiny doubt, so she crushed it with pride. The system gave the real survivors a second chance, she said. We use it better this time. There's the lie again. Clean, motivational, and ready for a LinkedIn post at the end of the world. Joon slotted the emergency core into a metal case under his floor. The neon blue panel expanded over the map. It read primary safe room active, acid seal stable, remote shelter 1 intake control linked. Civilian intake mode locked until weather event begins. He exhaled once, not relief, more like his body finally believed the plan had bones. Another panel opened beneath it. Severed party members flagged. Manual override required for access. 6 names appeared again. Yuna, Daeho, Sena, Mira, Kang, Hyejin. Joon stared at Yuna's name the longest. That was the part he hated, not because he wanted her back, because some old part of him still remembered choosing her first. In the first timeline, every emergency had her name on it. Give Yuna the growth reward. Give Yuna the safer route. Give Yuna the better blade. Give Yuna the final cure dose. Again and again, until love stopped looking like love and started looking like unpaid labor. Joon closed the list. Keep them flagged. The panel obeyed. The first sign wasn't rain. That's what most people remembered wrong. The first sign was the mist. A thin chemical haze rolled low through the streets before the clouds broke. Joon knew because in the first timeline, he watched 3 blocks get burned before anyone understood umbrellas were a joke. This time, he had already sealed the vents. Across town, Yuna's team stood 2 streets from Shelter 1, with 50 civilians behind them. They looked prepared, matching rain gear, packed weapons, medical bags, very clean, very cinematic, and completely missing the point. Yuna raised her voice. Stay close. Shelter 1 opens after the first rain event. If you follow us, you'll live. That line worked. People followed because confidence is a drug, and Yuna was handing it out in bulk. Daeho leaned near her. See, no Joon slowing us down. Yuna watched the shelter roofline in the distance. This is how it should have been. Then the first drop hit a parked car. The paint bubbled. A second drop landed on a man's sleeve, and he screamed before he even understood why. A pigeon fell off a power line. The street lost its mind in 12 seconds. Joon's panel lit up inside his safe room. Acid rain stage 1 confirmed. Primary safe room sealed. Shelter 1 civilian intake available. He looked at the smaller camera feed from Nari's street. Nari's mother pulled the mask over Nari's face with shaking hands. The purifier cartridge clipped into place. The kid lived through the first minute because Joon had spent cash, while Yuna spent judgment. That was enough for now. Joon tapped the Shelter 1 feed. Hold intake until the crowd reaches the door. Shelter 1 looked exactly like the old team remembered. Same steel entrance, same wall panel, same emergency markings. Daeho walked up like he owned it, which was bold because the door had paperwork proving otherwise. He placed his palm against the panel, open under survivor leader authority. The panel woke up, crisp neon blue, then a red denial stamp cracked across it. Access denied. No owner authority detected. Daeho blinked. Kang stepped forward. Try the old phrase. Hyejin whispered, not in front of them. Too late. Daeho lowered his voice and said the emergency phrase they remembered from the first timeline. The panel answered, previous timeline phrase invalid. Active owner's signature required. The civilians behind them started shouting. Yuna moved fast because that's what made her dangerous. She didn't panic out loud. She took control of the narrative before the facts could. The door rules changed, she said. Back up, let me check it. She put her hand on the panel. For 1 second, the neon blue light scanned her palm. Then the screen shifted. Applicant Yuna detected. Growth acceleration bond, revoked. Shelter benefit access, revoked. Owner approval required. Yuna's hand went still. She remembered Joon standing at shelter doors, always touching panels, always saying, I'm just checking something. She remembered rolling her eyes. She remembered telling him to hurry. Back then, she thought he was trying to look useful. Now the door was asking for the thing only he had ever provided. Daeho grabbed her arm. What does it say? Yuna pulled her hand back before he could read the full panel. Nothing, it's recalibrating. This woman could see her entire future cracking. Yet she still tried to PR manage the door. Kang slammed his fist against the panel. Opened. The panel stayed calm. Unauthorized force detected. Penalty warning issued. Kang hit it again. A thin blue pulse snapped from the wall and threw him backward onto the pavement. The crowd saw that. Fear changed direction. A woman holding a burned child pushed toward Daeho. You said this shelter was safe. Daeho raised his hands. It is, we just need a second. She slapped him across the face, screaming, My son got burned following you. That one hit better than any sword strike. Because Daeho could block monsters, he could not block accountability. Yuna stepped between them. Everyone calmed down. There is another entrance. There was, not for them, but there had been one in the first timeline because Joon opened it from inside the system network. Hyejin's voice dropped. Yuna, if it needs an owner signature. Yuna turned on her. Don't say it. Now we're cooking. Because smart viewers already know what Hyejin was about to say. If Shelter 1 had an owner, and the owner wasn't them, and the only person connected to Shelter panels was the man they called useless, then their whole new game plus route just got patched by the guy they deleted from the party. Inside his safe room, Joon watched the access log update in real time. Unauthorized access attempts detected. From Daeho, Kang, Yuna, and Hyejin. A second line appeared. Sena and Mira within restricted radius. A third line followed. Civilian intake Q. 184. Severe acid exposure detected among unregistered civilians. Joon's hand hovered over the panel. There it was, the first real choice. If he kept the door shut, the traitors suffered. But civilians suffered with them. And Joon was not them. That mattered. He selected a different option. Open civilian side intake. Exclude severed party members. The panel accepted it. Resource cost will be deducted from owner reserve. Of course it would. The system always charged him. Joon pressed confirm anyway. A side entrance opened 20 meters down the wall. The crowd surged. Yuna saw it first. Move. She grabbed Mira's wrist and ran with the civilians. For half a second, she thought she had saved it. Same old instinct. Find the opening. Take the benefit. Rewrite the story later. But when Yuna reached the side gate, the neon blue barrier dropped in front of her like a glass wall. The civilians passed through. Nari and her mother made it in. A burned office worker made it in. A crying old man made it in. Yuna did not. The panel beside the entrance read, "Severed party member access denied." Yuna stared at the words. Severed, not unknown, not unregistered. Severed. That meant someone had cut the connection on purpose. Daeho reached the gate and hit the same barrier. Sena tried next. Denied. Mira stood frozen behind them, rain burning tiny holes through her sleeve. For once, nobody had a speech ready. Yuna slowly turned back toward the main panel. Her face stayed controlled, but her fingers curled hard enough to turn pale. She knew. Not fully. Not with proof, but enough. Joon, she whispered. The old team had not lost a freeloader. They had lost the account holder, and the subscription just expired. Joon's panel opened a new request. Former partner Yuna requesting emergency shared benefit restoration. Under it, a voice message appeared. Yuna's voice came through the speaker, still trying to sound calm, while acid rain hammered the shelter wall behind her. Joon, if this is you, open the door. No apology, no explanation, straight to command, even locked outside in poison rain. Her first instinct was still to talk like access belonged to her. Joon looked at the request. His face didn't change. Outside Shelter 1, a new sound rolled through the street. Not zombies scratching, not civilians screaming. Something heavier. The system panel on Joon's wall flashed red. Stage 1 mutation detected near Shelter 1. Screamer class infected approaching. Yuna heard it too. Her eyes finally left the panel. The screamer walked out of the rain with its mouth split too wide, dragging claws across the asphalt like it was sharpening knives for fun. In the first timeline, the team survived this monster because Joon's sanctuary field boosted their defense, and Sena's healing output. This time, the field was off. The healer was normal. The door was locked, and Yuna's request was still blinking on Joon's screen. Restore shared benefits. Joon looked at the button. Yuna stood outside in the acid rain, finally staring at a future that didn't recognize her. And this is where we pause the panel, because if Yuna wants emergency access from the man she fed to zombies, she's going to need a better strategy than pressing the ex-girlfriend panic button. Drop the like if you want to see whether Joon lets her fight that screamer with no buffs, no shelter, and no borrowed plot armor. Because Manhwa Origins is absolutely not letting this woman gaslight an automatic door for free. Hit the bell before the screamer reaches the gate. And I am out. Well, here we are again. Because of you, part 2 exists. And spoiler alert, it gets worse. So let's pick up where we left off. The first warning Shelter 1 gave them wasn't a siren. It was Kang's body hitting the outer gate. He crashed into the reinforced steel so hard the access panel sparked, rolled down the concrete steps, and landed near Yuna's feet, with blood already running from his mouth. The gate didn't open. The small console beside it blinked one cold sentence. Access denied. External threat active. So Shelter 1 had made its choice. The people outside were no longer guests. They were debris. Then the scream hit. It tore across the street, cracking windows, bending signposts, and dropping Sena to one knee before she even understood where the pressure came from. Hyejin clamped both hands over her ears. Mira lost her grip on the emergency bag, and water packs spilled across the road. Yuna stayed upright, but blood slid from her nose. Across the street, the screamer crawled out from between 2 crushed cars. In Timeline 1, This monster had been a small problem. This version looked like the problem had grown teeth, learned hate, and come back for a refund. Its mouth didn't open from its face. It split down through its chest, ribs peeling apart around a black throat that pulsed every time it breathed. The old screamer stunned people. This one was trying to break them apart from the inside. Kang pushed himself up. Then he laughed. That laugh was the first real proof that nobody on this team understood how much history had changed. "We killed this thing before," he said, wiping blood from his chin. Same mutant, same weak spot. Yuna tightened her grip around her sword. She believed him. That was the second mistake. "Don't waste stamina," she ordered. "We know the pattern." No, they knew the result. They never learned the pattern. That difference was miles away now. Inside a safe house, where Joon slid the last steel bolt into place. A wall panel confirmed the outer lock was sealed. The water reserve was stable. The air circulation unit had enough power to last through the night. Joon read each line once, then moved to the next task. No victory smile, no speech about betrayal, no dramatic revenge posed beside a glowing monitor. He just counted supplies, checked the backup generator, and marked which vents still needed filters. Joon had never survived by looking impressive. He survived by doing boring things before they turned into emergencies. Outside Shelter 1, the old team was learning what happened when the boring person disappeared. Kang charged first. Daeho shouted, "Wait for formation." Kang didn't even look back. Formation is for people who can't hit hard enough. Anyone who's watched enough raid arcs knows that sentence is basically a medical bill with confidence. Kang swung his axe into the screamer's left shoulder. In Timeline 1, that hit had cracked the armor. This time, the blade bounced off. Not blocked, not dodged, rejected. Kang's eyes shifted for half a second, and that half second was all the monster needed. The screamer's arm blurred across his face. The slap cracked through the street like a gunshot. Kang smashed through the side of the car, rolled over broken glass, and hit the pavement hard enough to dent it. He still got back up. That was the problem with Kang. He had courage, strength, and the survival instinct of a man who thought pain was a suggestion box. "We hit the throat next," he barked. Mira shouted, "No, it changed." Kang ignored her. Yuna moved after him. Daeho slammed his shield down to pin the monster's legs. Sena lifted both hands, healing light already gathering in case the first exchange went bad. It went bad faster than expected. The screamer shifted its weight, letting Daeho's shield catch only one leg instead of both. The impact dragged Daeho forward, twisting his shoulder hard enough that his fingers opened for a second. A warning blinked across the small guard panel on his forearm, telling him shield integrity had dropped below half. He didn't have time to process it. The monster inhaled. "Down," Yuna shouted. Daeho dropped by instinct. The scream passed over his head and shredded the wall behind him. For a split second, relief flashed across his face. Then he realized the order had come late. In Timeline 1, he would have already been on the ground. That missing half second left a thin red line across his cheek, where the sound pressure had cut skin. Sena reached toward him. "I'm fine," Daeho snapped. He was, but nobody had space to be honest. Hyejin scanned the alleys, trying to force the street to match the future she remembered. Nothing matched cleanly. A burned bus blocked the left escape route. The pharmacy roof had collapsed. The narrow alley Joon once used to pull them out was full of infected shadows, dragging themselves through the dark. The future hadn't vanished. It had been edited. Hyejin swallowed hard. The right alley should still be open. Daeho looked at her. Should. It was open before. Before, that word had already started to rot. A thin combat pain flickered at the edge of Yuna's vision, fighting to compare the old record with the present. It labeled the Timeline 1 screamer encounter as low casualty risk. Then the pain corrected itself. Formation leader absent. Target calls missing. Survival projection unstable. Yuna didn't read the whole thing. She couldn't. The screamer moved again. Kang lunged for the throat. For one ugly flash, the old timeline cut through the chaos. Joon's hand grabbing Kang by the collar. Joon's voice sharp through smoke. Third breath, left plate, then throat. One line, that was it. One line had been the difference between a clean kill and a corpse on the road. Joon wasn't part of the formation. He was the formation, and this is the kind of thing Manhwa Origins viewers like Kane catch before the characters do. When a whole team keeps calling someone useless, check who was doing the job nobody wanted to notice. Kang's axe came down. Wrong timing, wrong angle, wrong life. The screamer's chest plates folded inward, covering the weak point like the monster had learned from their first attempt. Its fingers snapped around Kang's torso before he could pull back. Yuna cut across its wrist. The blade dug in, but not deep enough. Daeho rammed the monster's knee with his damaged shield. The joint bent. It didn't break. Mira threw a flare straight into the open chest mouth. White fire burst across the monster's ribs, and the screamer recoiled just enough for Kang to breathe. Again, Kang shouted. Nobody moved. For the first time, nobody trusted him. That tiny hesitation saved Daeho. It ruined Kang. The screamer lifted him and slammed him into the road. Once the concrete cracked. Again, Kang's armor split across the ribs. A third time, the sound wasn't loud anymore. That made it worse. It was heavy, final. Final, Sena reached him before the dust settled. "Cover me," she screamed. Daeho dragged what was left of his shield between her and the monster. Yuna stepped in front of them, blade raised, her arms shaking from the last scream. Hyejin pulled Mira back from the infected spilling out of the blocked alley. Sena dropped beside Kang and pressed both glowing hands over his ribs. "Heal." The light spread across the wound. Then it stopped. Sena stared. The wound stayed open. A red panel formed over Kang's chest, but the words were small, half buried under blood and panic. It said the external support layer wasn't detected. Wound stabilization had failed. Sena didn't understand the wording. She understood the blood. "Heal," she said again. More light poured from her hands. Nothing closed. Her healing was real. That was the cruel part. Sena wasn't fake, she wasn't weak. She was good enough to save people who should have died. But in Timeline 1, her power had never been alone. Joon had been the invisible multiplier. Without him, miracle became medicine. And medicine had limits. "Why isn't it working?" Sena whispered. Nobody answered. The screamer dragged one claw across the road, slow and careful, like it had realized the team was no longer dangerous in the way it remembered. Daeho braced behind his cracked shield. "Sena, faster." "I'm trying." Yuna grabbed Sena by the shoulder. "Then try harder." Sena looked up at her, eyes wide, hands still burning over Kang's chest. "I am." That line cut through the panic. Yuna's grip tightened. For 1 second, she looked like she wanted to reject the sentence, because accepting it meant accepting something worse. Sena was trying, and Kang was still dying. Yuna's palm cracked across Sena's cheek. Not clean, not heroic, not some stylish punishment, just panic wearing the shape of leadership. "Don't freeze," Yuna said. "Save him." Sena's cheek flushed red, but her hands never moved. She forced one more cast. The healing light shook. Kang gasped, fingers clawing at her sleeve. A small strip of torn skin closed near his shoulder, then split open again when he breathed. That was all. Sena's miracle had become a delay. Kang turned his head toward Yuna. For the first time since the fight started, he didn't look proud. He looked confused. "We killed it," he said. Sena shook her head hard. "Don't talk. We killed it before." Yuna stepped closer. "Kang, save your breath." His eyes drifted past her, past Daeho, past Hyejin, past Mira, to the empty space where Joon used to stand. The street seemed to shrink around that look, not because the monster stopped, because everyone understood where Kang was looking before they understood why. His hand tightened once around Sena's sleeve. Then his voice dropped into a broken rasp. Joon would have known what to do. His fingers went loose. The red panel over his chest changed without mercy. Life signal lost. Sena cast again. The panel didn't even blink this time. It simply told her the target was no longer valid. Daeho grabbed her shoulders and pulled her back before she burned herself empty. For 1 second, she fought him. Then her hands dropped. No speech, no heroic last stand. No apology. Kang died on the road outside a shelter that refused to open. Killed by a monster he thought they had already beaten. That was the first permanent consequence. Not a warning, not a scare. A body. Yuna stared at him. She didn't cry. Her mouth opened once, like a command was supposed to come out. Nothing did. That was worse. Crying would have meant the pain had found somewhere to go. This stayed behind her eyes and sat there. The screamer dragged itself forward, slower now. It had killed one of them, damaged Daeho's shield, drained Sena's stamina, and made Yuna go quiet. It didn't need to rush. Reality was already winning. Daeho stood first, not because he was calm, because if he stayed down, the team would stay down with him. "Plan," he said. No one answered. He looked at Yuna. Still nothing. He looked at Hyejin. Route. Hyejin's hands hovered over her map interface, but the path lines kept correcting themselves. Every safe road from memory was either blocked, burned, or crawling with infected. The north alley should connect to the drainage road, she said. Daeho's voice sharpened. "You keep saying should, because the map changed. The map doesn't change." "It did." Mira snapped. "Stop yelling and move." Everyone looked at her. Mira almost never raised her voice. In the old team, she was the soft one. The cousin, the person people protected when it was convenient, and ignored when it was. Now she was staring at Kang's body, like the world had just handed her a bill for every assumption she ever made. "We move now," she said. "Or he won't be the only one." The screamer inhaled again. Yuna raised her sword and shouted, "North Alley." They ran. For 3 seconds, it looked like the call might work. Daeho took point, broken shield raised. Mira dragged Sena forward by the wrist. Hyejin kept the map open, forcing the route line to stabilize. Then the infected in the alley turned. Dozens of them, not the slow, half-rotted kind they handled before. These were fresh, fast, and drawn by the screamer's sound. Hyejin froze. They weren't here. Daeho's head snapped toward her. "That doesn't help us now." The first infected lunged. Daeho smashed it with the shield edge, but the broken metal folded inward and cut into his own arm. He hissed through his teeth and kicked the corpse back into the crowd. Yuna rushed in, cutting 2 down before they reached Sena. Mira grabbed a fallen road sign and swung it with both hands, catching an infected across the face hard enough to send teeth scattering over the pavement. The impact jarred her wrists, but she didn't let go. Sena stared at her hands, still glowing, still useless to the dead man behind them. "Sena," Mira shouted. Sena blinked. An infected broke past Yuna's left side. Sena raised one hand on instinct, not to heal this time, but to blast raw light into its chest. The burst knocked it back, weak but enough. Enough to live, not enough to win. The alley was closing. Daeho glanced from the infected to the screamer behind them. Then to Yuna. New path. Yuna didn't answer. That was the habit breaking in real time. When danger rose, everyone looked to Yuna for the command. In Timeline 1, Yuna always gave it. Run left, hold position, break formation, get down, fall back. But Daeho's memory started cracking under pressure, and what came through was Yuna's voice first. It was Joon's. Smoke, blood, a collapsing wall. Joon shouting, "Run." Another flash, a mutant's tail sweeping low. Joon yelling left side. Daeho dropping half a second before the tail ripped through the space above him. Another flash, Joon grabbing Kang's belt before a charge. Joon kicking Daeho's shield 2 inches lower before an impact. Joon shoving a stamina vial into Sena's hand before her light failed. Yuna had repeated the orders louder, heroic enough for everyone to remember. That was the part memory had stolen. Yuna had been the voice. Joon had been the timing. Daeho's breathing changed. His shield arm hung wrong, but he barely noticed. He remembered laughing at Joon for calling retreats too early. He remembered calling him scared. He remembered surviving because the scared man had been right. That kind of regret doesn't arrive like thunder. It arrives like a door locking behind you. Daeho turned to Yuna. "Where do we run?" Yuna stared at the alley, at the infected, at Kang's body behind them, at the screamer opening its chest mouth for another blast. Her grip tightened around her sword until her knuckles lost color. No command came, because for the first time, she was reaching for a future Joon hadn't already built, and her hand closed around nothing. A threat gauge appeared above the screamer in jagged red segments. It filled faster than before, and the warning text beneath it was short enough for even a panicking person to read. Adaptation complete. Next vocal burst range expanded. Daeho looked from Yuna to Hyejin. Hyejin's map kept flashing dead roots. He looked to Sena. Sena was still shaking. He looked to Mira. Mira was already pulling Sena backward, eyes wet but focused. So Daeho lifted his broken shield anyway. That was not strategy. That was a man putting his body where the plan should have been. The screamer inhaled. The street lights shattered one by one. Daeho's voice came out lower this time. "Somebody tell me the retreat path." No one did. When the second scream hit, it didn't knock them back. It erased the street. Daeho planted himself in front of Sena and Kang's body, but the shield split down the center. A small warning blinked over his forearm, telling him the integrity had dropped to 0. The metal broke. The angle held, but barely. That half-second saved them. Yuna grabbed Mira by the collar. Mira grabbed Sena. Hyejin found the drainage hatch with shaking hands, and Daeho used his body to shove everyone through before the next wave hit. Kang stayed behind. Nobody said his name. Sena reached back once. Daeho caught her wrist. "He's gone." Sena turned and slapped him so hard the crack echoed down the tunnel. Daeho didn't raise his voice. "If you go back, you are too." That landed, and Sena's hand dropped. Behind them, the screamer crawled across the broken road. Slow now. Listening for panic like panic had a flavor. It had learned their rhythm. The team had none left. Hyejin opened her navigation map. Blue route lines flickered over the tunnel wall, trying to force her memories onto the ruined present. Nothing locked. Every safe path from Timeline 1 kept turning red. Daeho looked at her. "Tell us where to go." Hyejin swallowed. "East tunnel." They ran. For 10 seconds, it looked like she was right. The tunnel sloped down, narrow but clear. Yuna stayed in front. Daeho dragged his broken shield behind him. Mira kept one hand on Sena's sleeve, because Sena kept looking back like grief had a rope around her neck. Then the east tunnel breathed. A cluster of infected crawled out from the dark water ahead. Too many to cut through cleanly. Hyejin stopped dead. "No." Daeho's eyes snapped to her. "You said east." It was clear before Kang alive. Nobody had a comeback for that. Yuna rushed in anyway, cutting the first infected across the throat. Mira swung a rusted pipe into another one's face. Sena blasted raw healing light from her palm. Not healing this time, just forcing one corpse back, long enough for Daeho to shoulder through. The move saved Sena. It hurt Daeho. His damaged arm folded wrong, and the broken shield edge tore into his sleeve. A pain warning flashed across his panel, but he shut it with his thumb before anyone could read it. That's the kind of pride that gets people buried. But to be fair, the man had just watched Kang become a permanent lesson. Yuna pointed left. "Service ladder." Hyejin stared at her map. "That doesn't lead to shelter 2. Yuna's voice dropped. The east tunnel doesn't lead to living people. They climbed, no clean formation, no confidence. Just 4 survivors, and 1 healer who still had Kang's blood on her sleeves. At the top, the service road opened under a dead sky of cracked street lamps. Shelter 2 stood at the far end. The gates were open. That should have been good. It was. Bodies covered the steps. Hundreds. Some wore shelter uniforms. Some had civilian tags. Some still held bags, food packs, and children's coats like they had made it all the way to safety and died 1 doorway away. The emergency beacon above the gate kept blinking blue. Safe entry available. Hyejin took 1 step forward. Daeho grabbed her shoulder. Don't. She shook him off. This shelter was safe. Yuna stared at the gate. Hyejin. It was safe, Hyejin said again, but now she sounded like she was trying to convince the road. There were guards here. Barricades, medical tents, I remember it. Mira looked at the bodies. There are guards. One of them twitched. Not alive, just not finished being dead. The beacon blinked again. Safe entry available. Hyejin's eyes locked on the light. Blink. 7 seconds. Blink. 7 seconds. Blink. Her face changed. A memory cut through her panic. Timeline 1. The same road. The same beacon. Hyejin pointing toward shelter 2. Because her future knowledge said it was safe. Joon standing beside her, staring at the light. No, he had said. Hyejin had rolled her eyes. The shelter is active. The beacon repeats every 7 seconds. So, emergency beacons don't loop perfectly unless they're recorded. Back then, she called him paranoid. Yuna almost sided with her. Everyone almost did. Joon didn't argue. He blocked the road with a truck, forced them west, and let them complain for 2 hours while he searched for another route. They survived. Nobody asked why. Now Hyejin watched the beacon repeat with perfect timing over a staircase full of corpses. Joon hadn't guessed. He had checked. Hyejin had loved believing the future was fixed. Joon had been the reason it looked fixed. That's the real horror here. Not the screamer, not the infected. It's realizing the safe timeline. Had a guy off-screen doing all the ugly math. Daeho's voice came out low. He changed the route. Hyejin didn't answer. He changed the route, and you thought the future did it. Don't, she said. How many times? Her hand tightened. How many safe paths were actually him? Hyejin slapped him across the face. Not rage, but defense. Daeho slowly turned back. Cheek red, eyes hard. The slap didn't win the argument. It proved she couldn't answer it. A wet dragging sound came from inside shelter 2. Then another. Dozens. Yuna raised her sword. Move. The first infected crawled through the gate, wearing half a shelter guard uniform. Behind it came more. Too many. If Hyejin had watched one Manhwa Origins breakdown, she'd know an open shelter gate in the apocalypse isn't an invitation. It's the map screaming at you with better lighting. Mira pointed to the side road. Service underpass. Hyejin looked at her. What? Joon used it before, Mira said. He said main roads are for people who want to be seen. Daeho almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because even now, the escape route came from Joon. Yuna gave the order. Underpass now. They ran again. Behind them, Shelter 2's blue beacon kept blinking over the dead. Safe entry available. Safe entry available. Safe entry available. The lie stayed polite the whole time. The underpass door almost didn't open. Daeho slammed into it once. Nothing. Yuna cut the lock. Still stuck. Mira jammed the rusted pipe between the frame and pulled until her hands shook. Hyejin joined her. Sena stood behind them, staring at the infected closing in, her palms glowing with weak light. Daeho hit the door again with his shoulder. This time it gave. They fell inside, shoved a vending machine against the frame, and listened as infected hands slammed against the metal. Banged, banged, banged. Each hit made Sena flinch. Daeho slid down the wall, breathing through his teeth. His shield arm hung wrong, and his sleeve had gone dark around the tear. Sena saw it. Her hands lifted automatically. Daeho shook his head. Don't waste it. Sena stared at him. The words hit the wrong place, because 10 minutes ago, healing Kang hadn't been wasted. It had just failed. She crossed the underpass and pressed 2 fingers to Daeho's arm anyway. The light formed slower than before. A small recovery panel blinked near the wound and reported reduced efficiency due to a missing support link. Sena's face went still. Daeho read it too. Neither of them said Joon's name. The wound closed halfway, ugly and uneven. Daeho flexed his fingers. They moved, but barely. Good enough, he muttered. Sena pulled her hand back like the light had burned her. Hyejin sat on the floor with her map open. The blue line spun, collapsed, rebuilt, and died again. Shelter 2 was marked safe in her memory. The screen marked it compromised. The 2 facts sat beside each other and hated each other. Mira stood near the barricade, breathing hard, hands still wrapped around the pipe. Another hit shook the door. The vending machine scraped backward an inch. Yuna stepped forward. Mira reinforced it. Mira nodded fast. In Timeline 1, this was easy. Her barrier skill had been clean, strong, almost unfair. She could reinforce doors, seal cracks, and hold off infected waves long enough for everyone else to recover. She placed both palms against the vending machine. A gold barrier formed, thin, too thin. It cracked on the next hit. Mira froze. Yuna's eyes sharpened. Again. Mira tried again. The barrier appeared weaker. A small gold panel opened near her wrist before she could hide it. Growth rate recalculating. The number dropped, reduced by 63%. Mira's breathing stopped for 1 second. A smaller line appeared beneath it. Source of accelerated growth. Owner contribution. She didn't tap it. The panel asked for confirmation anyway. Mira's thumb hovered. Nobody moved. The infected hit the door again. Bang. Mira confirmed. A deeper record opened. Original contribution source, Joon. Permanent potential transfer detected. Donor growth ceiling reduced. Recipient awakening stabilized. Mira read it once, then again, and the words didn't change. Timeline 1 came back in broken pieces. Joon disappearing for 3 days before her awakening. Joon coming back with bandages under his sleeves. Joon saying he had been checking generator routes, even though his hands shook when he poured water. Everyone celebrating when Mira's growth exploded. Everyone calling her gifted. Joon standing near the door, smiling like he was relieved nobody noticed the cost. Mira had thought he was just tired. Just her cousin. Just the quiet guy who hovered too much. The panel corrected her. He had given up part of his future so hers could start. Daeho pushed off the wall. What is that? Mira closed her hand around the panel, but the light stayed visible between her fingers. Daeho reached toward it. She slapped his hand away. Don't touch it. He stopped. Mira's voice came out flat. He paid for my awakening. Nobody spoke. Sena looked at her half-healed hands. Hyejin's map went dark. Yuna stared at the words over Mira's wrist. Permanent potential transfer. Donor growth ceiling reduced. Recipient awakening stabilized. Mira backed into the wall and slid down until she was sitting. She didn't break loudly. That would have been easier to handle. She just pressed both palms over her mouth and stared at the panel until the light reflected in her eyes. Outside the door, the infected kept hitting, and every hit sounded like the future collecting interest. Joon was not watching them. That mattered. He wasn't sitting in the dark, enjoying the collapse. He wasn't smiling at camera feeds of his old team suffering. He didn't have revenge music playing behind him like some budget demon lord with a chair addiction. He had a half-working heater, a wall full of supply numbers, and 14 strangers standing outside his west entrance. The monitor showed 2 injured adults, 3 elderly survivors, and a cluster of children pressed against the outer fence, while infected staggered down the road behind them. The safe house panel warned him before he moved. Opening the west gate would reduce food reserves by 24 days. Infection risk would rise. Defense systems would need to reset after discharge. Joon read the warning once. He opened the gate. The outer corridor snapped alive. Floodlights hit the infected. Steel shutters dropped behind the survivors. A floor trap fired electricity through the front line, dropping the closest mutants before they reached the door. Joon pulled the last child inside himself. The boy clutched a cracked toy truck and stared up at him like he expected a price. Joon held out a food bar. The boy didn't take it. Smart kid. Joon crouched and placed the bar on the floor between them. Take it when you want. 2 seconds later, the boy snatched it. A woman with blood on her sleeve stepped between Joon and the other children. What do you want? Joon checked the inner lock. The gate sealed. That's not what I asked. I know. The woman's eyes narrowed. He pointed toward the heater. Injured people sit there. Anyone who can stand helps move water. Nobody touches the locked doors. Kids eat first. The survivors stared at him. Rules usually meant ownership. Ownership usually meant someone was about to start acting like a king with canned beans. An older man coughed. You're not the shelter manager. No, then who put you in charge? Joon looked at the locked door, the injured children, the shaking adults, and the panel quietly warning him that mercy was inefficient. I did. The old man did the smart thing. He shut up. Joon handed the woman a roll of bandages. Wrap the arm before you lose more blood. She didn't take it immediately. What's the catch? Joon's hand stayed out. No catch. Nobody helps for no reason. He looked past her at the children sitting near the heater. One of them already asleep against a supply crate. Someone should. That was it. No big speech. No saint pose. No lecture about humanity. Joon had always been like this. The world ended, and everyone else became sharper, smaller, crueler. Joon just became easier to see. The safe house updated its projection after the survivors entered. Food reserves down. Population up. Survival stability lowered. Joon confirmed the changes and turned to the room. Move the water first. Blankets after. If anyone hides a bite for later, don't steal it from them. People stop panicking faster when they know the next meal exists. A child looked up from the food bar. Are monsters coming here? Joon checked the west camera. Yes. The adults froze. He pointed to the inner hall. That's why we're closing 3 doors between us and them. The kid nodded like that made perfect sense. Honestly, it did. Children ask better apocalypse questions than adults. Adults want comfort. Kids want the door count. Joon grabbed a toolbox and started sealing the loose frame near the generator room. No one cheered. No one thanked him properly. He didn't pause long enough to need it. Back in the underpass, Yuna's interface opened. Not because she asked, because the system had finished recalculating her future. A pale window formed in front of her, quiet and cruel. Shared benefits had been terminated. Growth acceleration was offline. Sanctuary aura was offline. The partner link was severed. Yuna stared. The others only saw the light on her face at first. Then the final number appeared. Current growth projection. 41% of timeline 1. No one moved. Yuna did not cry. Her eyes stayed on the number. 41%. That number was too small to be a warning. It was a verdict. In the first timeline, Yuna became the blade everyone followed. The woman at the front of raids, the person who broke mutant nests, led survivors through dead zones, and stood in the center of disaster like the world had no right to touch her. She believed that version of herself was proof. Proof she was chosen. Proof she had earned the future. Proof Joon had been holding her back. Now the system placed a quieter truth in front of her. Not accusation. Correction. Yuna lifted her hand and tried to activate the familiar pulse she remembered from Timeline 1. The aura that used to settle over the team before a hard fight. The boost everyone called her blessing. Nothing answered. The panel stayed open. Partner link severed. She tapped the line. A hidden detail unfolded beneath it. The original partner was outside the shared path. Reconnection was denied. Yuna's hand went still. The infected hit the barricade again. The gold barrier over the vending machine cracked deeper. Mira stood, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and pressed both palms to the barrier again. It held, but barely. Daeho pushed himself up beside her, bad arm hanging stiff. Sena lifted her hands, but didn't know where to put them. Hyejin opened her map again, even though everyone knew it would fail. Each of them was staring at a different piece of the same missing person. Sena had lost the man who made her miracles possible. Daeho had lost the man who knew when strength had stopped being enough. Hyejin had lost the man who checked the future instead of worshipping it. Mira had lost the cousin who cut his own tomorrow into pieces, so hers could grow. Yuna stared at 41% and said nothing. That was the worst one, because she hadn't only lost Joon. She had lost the version of herself she thought belonged to her. Mira spoke first. Her voice was quiet enough that the pounding almost swallowed it. When did we stop noticing everything Joon did for us? Nobody answered. Sena's fingers curled into her palms. Daeho looked away first. Hyejin closed her dead map, opened it again, and got the same broken roots. Yuna kept staring at the projection. 41%. A future cut down before it could even stand. She finally lowered her hand. Her voice came out thin but not broken. How much of our future actually belonged to him? The question stayed there. Nobody had an answer. They had enough truth to doubt themselves, not enough to fix anything. Joon finished sealing the generator frame. The child with the toy truck had fallen asleep near the heater. The injured woman sat beside the other survivors, bandaged now, still watching him like kindness might change its mind. Joon ignored the look. He had work to do. Then the main wall screen flashed. Timeline divergence detected. The number appeared in white. 12%. Joon paused. The number jumped. 31. A second later. 54. The room lights dimmed as the system recalculated. 79. A red warning spread across the screen. Original future, no longer recoverable. Joon read it. For the first time that night, his face changed. Not much, just enough. The corner of his mouth lifted. Good. Now if you want more of this, subscribe, and the truth will find you too. Manhwa Origins holds the only key to the next step.